And hello and welcome again to Avatar Face to Face. My name is Jewel Kinch-Thomas, your host for today as we explore all about the arts and culture happening in Westchester and beyond. We always have some really fantastic artists on this show, and we hope that you enjoy what we're able to bring to you. Today, we have visual artist Berenice Pliskin. We want to welcome her to the show, Berenice. Berenice, very nice to have you here.
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure.
Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful. We should let our audience know that you have been quite the renowned artist for several years now and have won all types of awards.
Yes.
You have been in many, many exhibits and publications from the New York Times to the Journal News to Hudson Valley Magazine. And I want to just say that the list of your exhibits and your commissions and your awards are absolutely too many for us to go through right now, but we just want folks to know that that's the level of work that you have been able to achieve in your journey. So let us start with how you first knew that you wanted to be a visual artist, that that was going to be your life's passion.
Well, I guess that goes back a really long way. Um, I recall even as a young child being interested in drawing, and I found out that I was good at it.
Okay.
And that always is another catalyst for wanting to do something if it turns out that you find it easy and pleasant to do. My older sister, was interested in art. My father had also gone to the Art Students League, and so there was a feeling that art was important within the house that I lived.
Okay.
And as time went on and I became ready for high school, I tried out for the High School of Music and Art.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's called LaGuardia High School, but
Okay,
it's
yes.
basically the same.
Right.
And I was very pleased when I was accepted, and I spent 4 wonderful years there.
Mm.
And I started at ninth grade, actually, and went through until high school, having lots of art classes and having companions, artists, young artists who were in the school with me, which is
Okay.
always, a wonderful kind of situation.
Right. And then you moved on to Lehman College.
Yeah. Well, before then, I went to City College
Okay.
and became very practical at age 17 and
Mm.
decided that if I was going to be an artist, I would probably have to support myself by some other means until who knows what.
Right.
And so I became a teacher.
Okay.
And I was both an elementary school teacher for almost 30 years and an art teacher in one of the largest public elementary schools in Manhattan.
Okay.
And there I had a wonderful time.
Wow. All right. And then you moved on to Lehman.
Yes, I decided to take my master's in fine arts.
Okay.
I first went to NYU and then I switched to Lehman, which had a wonderful program. And I haven't stopped. I'm a inveterate taker of courses. I take lots and lots of courses.
Okay. Wonderful. So, how long have you worked with silk as your medium of choice?
I think it started around 92 or so,
Mm-hmm.
which is a considerable amount of time ago. My husband is a photographer, and he was taking a course. And he wanted to take a course, and it turned out that it was given in New Jersey, in a place
Okay.
called Peters Valley, which is a craft school.
Okay.
And he said, "Why don't you come along?" And I looked at the possible selection of classes
Mm-hmm.
and found that there was silk painting, which was pretty much at the same days and the same hours that he was going to be in class.
Okay.
So knowing nothing about it, I decided to take it.
Wow.
And that's the story.
And then and there it began.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
It was love at first sight.
Wonderful. How difficult or easy is it to work with silk as opposed to some of the more traditional surfaces?
I would say it's more difficult until one gets a handle on it
Okay.
because it's unpredictable.
Mm.
If you make a mistake in acrylic or an oil, wait a while,
Right.
then you can go right over it.
Okay.
Silk is unforgiving
Ah.
in the sense that if you put the wrong color somewhere, you
Mhm.
really have to think about how you're going to change that to what you want because
Okay.
it's like when you by mistake, spill some wine on a tablecloth,
Right.
and it spreads. That's
Okay.
very similar to what happens with the dyes that I use.
Is that one of the things that is attractive to you in terms of working with that?
Absolutely, because the colors are so intense that I was a watercolor painter for many years, and I still do enjoy watercolor.
Okay.
But after the water leaves the pigment, it isn't as bright as what I get when I paint with dyes.
Uh-huh.
And the dyes are intense. They have a kind of brilliance that really keeps me interested and intrigued in it.
Okay, all right. So, what is the process of working on silk? What do you need to do in order to? And we're going to show some of
Yes.
your extraordinary work very shortly. But let's share with folks a little bit about
Certainly.
what that process is.
Well, I think the best way to explain it is to look over here.
Okay, all right.
What I did was prepare a piece of silk, crepe de chine, which is what I work on, which is specially prepared for silk painters.
Okay.
It doesn't have any of the starch or sizing in it or any of the oils that might be in ordinary fabric. And it has a bound edge, which makes it easy for me to pin to something like a frame.
Okay.
There are many, many ways of doing it. This is one of the ways I do it.
Okay.
And after the silk is washed and stretched onto this kind of stretcher, I then take a little sticky substance called Resist,
Uh-huh.
which is a honey-colored liquid.
Okay.
And I then remove the pin, which holds it from obviously overflowing.
Okay.
And a very thin stream comes right out. I draw directly on there.
Okay.
And you can see where I've decided
Your
to make
outline,
the
yes.
outlines.
Okay.
Now, it isn't always necessary to outline, but when I'm doing something like fish or something like that,
Right.
that's one of the methods I use.
Okay.
And then it dries, and then I go on to the next step, which is adding the color.
All right. And are you going to show us how you do that?
Absolutely.
We'd love to
Okay.
see.
Now, I'm going to take the red and my brush, dip it into a little water. I use the color very intensely.
Okay.
Some silk painters like to water it down, but I feel one of the beauties of it is that it is such an intense color. And I like to leave it that way. As you can see as I'm working that it spreads
It does.
hopefully to the edge and doesn't go beyond that.
Okay.
And I would do that wherever I felt that I wanted to put the red in. For
Wow, you can
example.
see how that's just absorbing and spreading as
yes.
soon as you put that tip on the silk. Okay, that is wonderful.
Okay, and I have other colors, but I think that it's clear what happens.
Right, right.
There are many other techniques. Alcohol will create one kind of effect, and when we look at my paintings, I can explain that.
Okay.
And I can also show what salt does.
Salt.
Yes. You can use table salt, or there are special salts for this, and they leave a certain impression, which is very interesting.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'd love to see that as we go a little further into your
Okay.
work. So, this is a very intricate
That's
process.
correct,
It
yes.
seems. How long, for example, this particular painting? How long would it take you to finish this?
I'd say about 3 or 4 hours.
3 or 4 hours. Okay.
Yes. And that could be one studio afternoon after I've already decided on what the imagery is.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, before we go into a little bit more into your work, share with us some of your influences.
Well, let's see. There are so many. I would say Romar Bearden,
Okay.
and let me think. Stuart Davis, a wonderful artist named Elizabeth Murray.
Okay.
There's so many that it's cave paintings.
Cave paintings.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to explain that, please.
Certainly. I guess it happened in high school when one of my French teachers mentioned that the caves in Altamira and Lascaux had some of the earliest renderings ever done by humans.
Right.
And that really fired my imagination. And I was very fortunate that about 15 years ago, I was able to visit Lascaux.
Mm.
Lascaux, unfortunately, because so many people have been there, is no longer open, but there's a replica right next to it called
Okay.
Lascaux 2.
Okay.
And there really isn't any difference. It's so masterfully done. And it's very exciting to me to think that 25,000 years ago, people were able to paint. And
Mm.
that just got me.
That charges
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. That is terrific. So, what is it that inspires you to pick up the brush? I mean, do you start with a concept, something in mind, or or what? Or do you just go to your piece of blank silk and whatever comes?
Well, actually, it's both.
Okay.
I've used dreams in
Mm.
my work, um, because silk has a kind of liveliness to it because it's organic.
Okay.
And it makes me feel like it shimmers at times, and if you just hang a piece of silk up, it moves also. So that
Ah.
gets my imagination going.
Okay.
And I started with very simple shapes and then worked into more complicated ones. But
Right.
there are times when I don't want to have an idea, where
Mm-hmm.
I want the silk and the dyes to take me wherever I'm going.
Okay.
And so what I do in that case is stretch a piece of silk,
Uh-huh.
and take some dye and allow it to move in something that might, it's like a Rorschach test, that might
Mm.
um, give me a creative idea about what it looks like. And I've done some paintings that way.
Okay. All right.
And-
So why don't we take a look at some of your paintings right
Yes.
now? Because this is it's an extraordinary process, and I've really have not been exposed to painting on silk before. But I can say that your work really struck me when I initially discovered your website. So what I discovered were a number of series, and one of them was flora and fauna.
Yes.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about how that occurred, and as you speak, we're going to show some of the work so
Okay.
folks can see.
Shall we start now?
Yes, go right ahead.
Well, the spider, is part of a series,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a sticky web
Right.
that the spider has every intention of hoping that it will yield something like an insect.
Right.
And as I became more accustomed to working with silk and to using resist,
Yes.
I realized that it flows out in a single strand,
Okay.
and I began to feel like the spider because there it was. And so I decided to start drawing spiders.
Uh-huh.
And that inspired me to sometimes have an insect caught in it, or sometimes to just leave the web waiting for something to happen.
Okay, all right, and some of the other ones that I saw on your website some were still life, some were flowers,
Yes.
or equinox.
Yes.
Some of them were really spectacular in terms of the detail and the color. The colors are so vivid and just so bright. It really is. It really draws you in.
Hopefully that's what the way I feel, and it's wonderful that it gets that reaction.
Okay. And one of the ones that we're seeing right now is the woman with tattoos.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, it's just the detail in the tattoo itself is really spectacular. What was the inspiration for this particular one?
Well, tattoos on skin
Mm-hmm.
are somewhat, to me, similar to what happens on silk.
Okay.
Silk has that same smooth feeling,
Okay.
and what the tattoo artist does with his ink and the material and the pen he uses is somewhat similar to what I do.
What you're doing? Okay.
And so I saw the connection, and I had a class where there was a wonderful model who had many tattoos.
Mm.
In fact, we can't see it from this point of view, of course, but she had a huge Japanese print on her back also. That was
Wow.
wonderful.
Okay.
And so what I decided to do was paint her on silk after I had done an oil painting of that.
Ah,
And it's a different painting because this has a transparency or a translucency that you don't get on oil.
okay.
And then, of course, I painted her with this wonderful tapestry that she was sitting on. So that
Right.
all the paisley was another challenge.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So you have these series that you work with. Do you determine ahead of time that you're going to do X number of paintings for a particular series, and look at various aspects of what you can include, or how do you go about making that whole series come to life?
Well, I start with an idea, and then, of course, one painting will somehow spark the idea that I want to do another one, and then
Okay.
I'll go on from there. And some of my series I'd like to feel are never going to be finished
Mm.
because
Okay.
something might come along that is perfect for continuing that series, and so
Okay.
I leave them open.
Okay. I think we just saw something from your France series, which
Yes,
was the beach at Nice.
yes,
And you have all kinds of, I want to say, village scenes and life and people in everyday circumstances. Is that something that you love to put in place in terms of representing an urban scene?
yes.
Okay.
Uh, I think that my sensibilities are totally urban, and
Mm.
even when I was in Nice, what I was attracted to were the number of people on the beach,
Okay.
and the fact that they all had their own identities and were doing many different things,
Right.
including just enjoying the sun.
Okay.
And the beach there is a cobble beach, or lots of little pebbles. So it
Okay.
was much more challenging to actually work with the resist and with the silk in order to accomplish that.
Wow. Okay. And your urban scenes are not only did you do them in France, but here as well. It seemed like the rooftop and scenes of people at the bus stop and in restaurants. That carries through.
Exactly.
Okay. Just fantastic. There's a movement that is apparent. I feel when you look at these that makes it very familiar.
Wonderful.
Okay, I
Nice
love
to
it.
hear.
I love it. But let me move to something that really resonated with me when I came to your homepage, and it was the Latino day laborers series that you have right as you open up your website, and I thought, wow, what a subject to create a painting series about. Please explain how you came to this concept and why.
Okay. Well, um, I live in White Plains,
Hmm.
and I travel along Central Avenue, and just like any other shopper, I'm looking for places to buy things.
Right.
And I was on my way to Central Avenue one morning, and there were groups of Hispanic men or Latinos
Mhm.
standing in groups. And
Okay.
the idea of a group interested me, and they seemed to be there in all sorts of weather.
Mm.
And I was impressed with the fact that they weren't going to come in out of they were waiting for work.
Right.
And I was intrigued by the way they dressed, how they looked, and I wanted to learn more about them.
Okay.
And so what I did, very fortunately, was make contact with a wonderful Mount Kisco community center
Mhm.
called Neighbors Link.
Okay.
It's been there for some time. And I went and I visited, and I brought a few of my paintings, and I made contact with some of the young men there.
Okay.
And I felt if I was going to be interested in this and paint the men, that I should learn more about them.
Ah.
And so I found that I could teach art after they had someone came in and volunteered and taught them English,
Right.
and then I asked if they would like to stay for an art lesson,
Uh-huh.
and many of them did.
Okay.
And I asked, and it was very simple. I have some Spanish, but not enough to really be comfortable with it, but enough to make some conversation.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And I asked them if they would do paintings very simply or drawings of their home, as they recalled it.
Right.
And I had them do self-portraits. I brought in little mirrors
Okay.
and things that were somewhat out of their experience in the center.
Okay.
And I found that some of the men had good educational backgrounds.
Yes.
And one of them particularly told me that on his days when he wasn't working, he would go down to the Guggenheim.
Mm.
And so I realized that there's a lot to learn about people.
Okay. Well, this is an amazing journey that you
Yes.
just encapsulated in a minute and a half. I mean, it's from driving down Central Avenue and seeing these men and women, because
Yes.
one of the images that we weren't able to show because of its breadth was of women, garment
Exactly.
workers, gathered on the sidewalk waiting for work.
Early in the morning, on a winter morning.
I find it just so fascinating that this would strike you to the point where you would want to reflect it in a body of work that is making a statement, and drawing attention to a subject that many people are sensitive about, that there is enormous debate going on about with our government right now.
You bet.
And you have pinpointed that in your work and said, okay, here, just look at these images of these people. What was it that you were hoping to achieve?
Well, I have a studio in Peekskill, and as I paint and have them framed, or in some way have them on my easel, people come in quite frequently on weekends and to visit, and it's a dialogue. It's an opportunity, since I'm always there on weekends and but that's when the people come in, for me to hear what they have to say, because
Okay.
the paintings are right in front of them. It's a subject which has been on people's minds for quite a long time,
Right.
and I discuss with them, first hearing what they have to say.
All right.
And I would say that the number of people who find that working with these day laborers has been such a positive experience overwhelms the number of people, the small number of people who were somewhat soured about it.
Okay. You had one particular painting that of a portrait of a man, and the title on it is "Not Wanted." What is the significance of that title?
Well, anyone who's been to a post office gets to see a poster that says "wanted,"
Yes.
meaning, of course, wanted for putting in jail or
Some
whatever,
sort of
so
criminal activity. Yes. Okay.
So I thought I would do a play on words, and this man, Rene Perez, was a Guatemalan immigrant
Yes.
who lived in Mount Kisco, and he found himself in Bedford. I mean, he was in Bedford, and he was apparently not feeling well, and also probably causing some problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bedford police got in touch with the Mount Kisco police
Okay.
and said, in effect, please come and pick him up, because he's your jurisdiction.
Okay.
And apparently they did, and he complained, I understand, from news articles that I read, that he was not feeling well, that he had stomach pains, and they said they would take him to the hospital.
Okay.
The next morning, he was found dead on the side of the road.
Mm.
I don't know if it was in Mount Kisco or Bedford,
Okay.
but I do know that what followed was a trial in White Plains,
Yes.
and there was not enough evidence to incriminate anyone.
Okay.
And so it's something that I found. We have so many things like this happen in our lives. I mean, they flash by. One
Right.
crisis is often wiped away by another crisis.
Yes.
And I felt, as an artist, that I would honor him by doing a painting of him from a small photograph
Right.
and write "Not Wanted" on it. But also something else happened. After I do these paintings, it's necessary to steam them or to iron them in some cases so that so that the dyes become permanent.
Okay.
I decided not to do that
Why?
because I felt that, as often happens, we forget too quickly and things fade from memory. And
Yes.
I thought this would be a way of my showing that.
Okay. So bringing his humanity to the forefront
Exactly.
and almost immortalizing it in that respect. Okay. I find that your entire journey and experience commendable and
Thank you.
just a thing of beauty, really, because it is that art and the work that you do that makes it such a powerful statement for people, of every walk of life, to be able to connect and reflect about, so it's a really wonderful thing that you've done. I hope that you continue
Oh, of
to
course
do
I will,
that type
because
of work.
there are enough things of interest, but interest quotes, meaning things that should be looked at more closely by the public that I will
Absolutely.
probably be working on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Berenice, please give your website so that people who are interested and would love to see more of your work and maybe even contact you would be able to do so.
It would be my pleasure. May I also say that I'm going to be having my paintings, I'm very excited about it, at the Howland Cultural Center in Beacon.
Okay.
And it's going to be up for Hispanic History Month, and I was invited to join the show, which really pleased me tremendously. I'm the only non-Hispanic in the show.
Wonderful.
And I'd like to mention a few of the artists' names. Is that okay?
Oh, we have just a couple of seconds left.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I have here, the opening reception is on September 7th,
Okay.
from 3 to 5. And the dates of the exhibit are September 7th through September 29th. And it's open to the public and free, and we'd love to have people come. I understand there's going to be music and all kinds of wonderful things going on. And the address is 477 Main Street in Beacon.
Okay.
And let's see if I have the names of any of the artists. Do we have time?
Well, actually, we don't.
Oh.
But I would say that you could give your website, and if
I certainly
the
will.
names would be there, and they would be able to get more information, that would be the best thing.
Very well. My website is b-b-pliskin, which is, my husband is a photographer and we share a website.
Okay.
b-b-pliskin.com.
And Pliskin is spelled?
Pliskin, as in skin.
Okay. All right. Berenice, thank you so much. Your work is inspiring.
Well, thank you.
Love to see more of it, and I hope that people who have watched today will take the opportunity to do the same.
Okay, may I say that my studio is in Peekskill.
Yes.
At the Flatiron Building, 105 South Division Street.
Excellent. Thank you again for being with us today, and we've enjoyed having you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining us today on Avitar Face to Face. We hope we see you again next week, and until then, stay blessed.